Hey there, listener. I want to thank you for listening to the National Land Realty Podcast. Now, please remember to like, share, and review our show. If you can, take a second, hit pause, and give us a quick review. It only takes about a minute to write what you think about the content that you hear on this show. Good or bad, we want to hear it. Thank you in advance. Now on with the show. Welcome to episode number 20 of the National Land Realty Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Our goal here is to inform, educate, and entertain those of you who own land or are interested in the buying and selling of land throughout the United States. My name is Mac Christian, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at National Land Realty. I'll be your host for this episode. Now, in this episode, I'm talking with Jack Gabriel out of Mississippi and licensed in Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Jack has a decade of experience in land and is a lifelong outdoorsman. He's here to share his knowledge about government programs that can pay you to help in making improvements to your land. But that's not all. Like always, we go where the conversation takes us, and it always involves land. There's a lot of information here, and Jack is as knowledgeable as they come. Now, sit back and enjoy the show. I am sitting here with Jack Gabriel of Mississippi. Jack is a land agent with National Land Realty. And Jack, can you tell me a little bit just how you got started in this business and you know how long you've been a land agent and how long you've been around, you know, just land in general?
Yeah, sure. I started in the land business in 2012, working for another company. I've been full time in it since then. Been with National Land about 2 years now. And I got in it because I got laid off from a job in the hospital. I was a radiation therapist before, and kind of instead of feeling sorry for myself, so what can I do to go do something I enjoy and am passionate about? So I took my real estate classes online, and I think within a month I was licensed in Mississippi. Currently, I'm licensed in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, and Arkansas.
Holy cow, that's a lot of tests.
Yeah. Well, it kind of, if you look at my bio online, I've lived in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. So I've kind of covered a lot of terrain. I grew up hunting in Louisiana, duck hunting in Venice in South Louisiana, and deer hunting in North Louisiana. So I've always had a passion for the outdoors. I'd say my weakness is I'm not a forester. So when people, talk timberland, I typically have to, get some help with that. But when it comes to recreational land and agriculture properties, row crop farms, that's what I really enjoy. Been a member of RLI from day one, have my accredited land consultant designation, currently serve, just got elected to be the secretary of the Mississippi RLI chapter. So I'll be serving in that role this year, which is kind of fun being on the board of directors for our state chapter.
So Jack, you mentioned RLI and you mentioned the accredited land consultant, and I wanted to ask you about that, specifically the accreditation. So the RLI is the Realtors Land Institute, which is an organization designed to increase knowledge about land for real estate agents or land agents. And they do several class-based learning sessions with agents around the country. And one of their highest level of accreditations that they give out is somebody who has undergone the accredited land consultant training, which you have. So tell me a little bit about that program.
So the ALC, or accredited land consultant designation, requirements are you've got to take a certain amount of education through RLI, and you've got to meet certain production criteria. I think it's $10 million of total sales in a certain period of time. And once you do that, then you've got to take what do they call sort of your ALC final exam. So a comprehensive exam on your knowledge of land topics, as well as you've got to write an essay and go back and take all the deals that added up that $10 million worth of sales and put together the whole package of closing statements, what the property type was, and you have to elaborate were there any problems? How did you fix it? And then you submit that to the board of directors and they evaluate it and say, okay, yeah, this is good. And they approve it or they deny it. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes time. I think it's definitely worth getting, because when you get that ALC designation and you can put those credentials behind your name, not only are you proud to have that, but it also shows that you're an expert in land. You might not be an expert in every aspect of land, but your overall knowledge of land and the different aspects of it, you've covered through the ALC program.
Gotcha. So as you're going through this, they're not just testing you on academic stuff. You can't just go into the books and say, hey, theoretically it's this and this and this. And like, you're not just answering questions. They're actually looking at all of your personal, like your business that you've gone through to qualify for this in the first place. So that's right. They track the actual things that you've done for best practice anyways. And so that's kind of a rare thing, right? To where if I wanted to be, if I want to be an attorney or something, they're not going to go back through and analyze every like job I've held and how I did that job and, see how I performed. It's kind of a rare thing.
Yeah. I mean, they look at it as the academic side is one part of it, but the production side is a major part of it. Anybody can read a book and take a test or take a class, but to actually meet the criteria on the production side shows that you are doing the job. You're not just taking a test and taking classes to get an A. You're actually taking the classes and going out and implementing all these practices and closing deals.
Yeah. It's not even like a driver's test. Like this is, it's not where you're in a controlled environment with an instructor or something. It's just how you work every day. It seems really unique, but the rationale behind it is also fairly essential that, you have to know land and work with land and show an extensive history with it. It all makes sense. It's just unique with how they approach that. You also played football in college. Is that right?
Well, let's just say I was on the team. I was a punter, so I don't know how much you can say I played football. I was a wide receiver and a punter, but I only punted in college. So, I played football, but let's just don't give me too much credit there.
Well, it's you can always claim the football piece for college,
That's right.
Well, I admire that because I think it's, one of the safer pieces on the team, right? You just run out and do your job and go home.
It's funny you say that because we were going to play Penn State on a Thursday night ESPN game. And during the team period, during my senior year, somebody dove in my leg and I was out the rest of the year. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not the safest position on the team.
Yeah, well, and the funny thing is, the reason I got to play in letter is the punter before me got hit during a game and tore his ACL. So, yeah, it seems safe, but Jamie and I kind of had our downturns. We both got hurt. So.
Nobody's safe on the football field, man. If the punters go down like that.
Well, and we did all the work. I mean, we had to be there for the workouts and do all that. It's just our practices were a little different, and obviously you get in a game an average of maybe 3 or 4 times. So. That's why it's hard to say I played football, because I'd much rather been hitting somebody or somebody hitting me. But hey, it paid for my school. I'm glad glad my leg was good enough to be able to get a scholarship and play football.
Well, it's like that's one of the positions on the field where you're given what you are and what you do. You're the one person that doesn't want to play, right? You don't want to ever send the punter out on the field in the first place. So like when you go out, things haven't gone right.
Yeah. Well, I used to ruffle feathers sometimes because, if you had a bad punt and somebody come over, come on, man, you do better than that. All you got to do is kick the ball. And I'm like, well, hey, I just saw you miss a tackle. All you had to do was tackle that guy. It goes the same for you. And
if you would tackle the man you were supposed to, I wouldn't be on the field.
That didn't go over well sometimes, but at the end of the day, it kind of gained you some respect because you wasn't just going to take a bunch of crap from a bunch of guys. You were like, hey, I'm doing my best. You're doing your best. Let's work together.
Yeah. Which is the right.
It's not like I didn't intentionally shank that punt, buddy. You didn't intentionally miss that tackle either. We're all up at 5 a.m. in the weight room. We're all studying film. We're all going through all this together.
Yeah. Well, so bringing it back to land, because I love that story too, the punting in college and all that. But I want to bring it back to land real quick. We were talking sort of before we threw the record button on, and you kind of started in, and it's just hearing your knowledge on the topic and hearing you start talking about it. It's just a really interesting thing to talk about. Programs that are available to landowners who basically by doing the things that they already do and maybe a little bit more as far as improving their land, there's ways that landowners can make money to pay for projects on their land and essentially pay for some of the land itself, right? If they work the pricing right. But there's ways to make money on your land just by making it habitable, right? Yeah,
the main goal of any landowner, I would think, would be to improve their overall asset, and to make it more valuable. A lot of that people think has to come out of their own pocket, but through the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, you have the NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the FSA, the Farm Service Agency. They have programs that will basically cost share some of these activities with landowners. And it's funny to me because a lot of people don't even know that there's a USDA office almost in every county or every parish, wherever you live. And all you have to do is go walk in there and sit down and talk to these people because they're good people. They're down to earth. They're educated in the arena that they're working in, and they're very approachable. So do not be intimidated just because it's a government facility. It's not like going down to the DMV where everybody looks like they've been eating a Sour Patch Kid. These people want you to come in there and talk to them, and they can educate you on, hey, okay, what type of property do you own? And then you can ask the question, well, what kind of programs do you have that can assist me in this project that I want to do? So you may have a lot of privet on a property, which is an invasive species. I told you before we started, I know a guy that on a 5-year contract got paid $90,000 to go in and manage that privet and mulch it to open up the understory. And by doing that, hey, he had income, right, for 5 years. And then, there's other programs through the NRCS like WRE, Wetlands Reserve Easement. It used to be known as WRP. They're paying up to $3,600 an acre to take below average farmland, plant it in trees, and develop waterfowl habitat or, make better quail habitat, make better deer habitat. So you can take a piece of farmland and turn it into a recreational property, or at least part of it, not all of it. You don't want to take your highly productive ag land out and won't qualify. But the lower end stuff, add some recreational value to your farm. Because not everybody's a farmer, not everybody's a hunter. But when you can diversify your property, it makes it more attractive to the next end user.
Right. Yeah. And so a lot of these programs have to do with specifically farmland that you can convert, whether it's a highly productive unit or, like you said, with the wetlands program, you take, it's sort of one of the qualifiers is that it's kind of a mid-range piece, right? Like it's not totally destitute, but it's not, your top end producer, right?
Right. Yeah. They're not going to allow, highly productive farmland into these programs. Now, there are ways on highly productive farmland to make money through CSP programs. So conservation stewardship programs. So say you have a highly productive farm and you want to put an irrigation pipeline in, or you want to laser level that farm to increase its productivity and also enhance its value. Well, these CSP programs, the NRCS will pay sometimes up to 75% of the cost of that project. So instead of that landowner coming out of pocket 100%, all they got to come out of pocket is 25%. But that'll never happen if you don't go down to the USDA office and talk to the NRCS and FSA personnel. There's tons of opportunity. A lot of what I see because of where I'm located is wetlands and conservation for waterfowl, and obviously row crop land improvement. There are other programs for forest landowners, CRP. You don't hear much about it anymore, but it's still out there where you got a 10 to 15 year contract where the government will cost share, planting trees on some below average farmland, pasture land, whatever.
So that's two different programs that you talked about is the conservation stewardship program and the conservation reserve program. Your background is pretty strong with the conservation stewardship program. So what is it like sort of, you mentioned walking into a USDA office. What would a landowner expect if they did that? Like, so there's a licensing, there's, qualifications, there's, how does that sort of relationship progress? When somebody decides, hey, I want to check out improving my land and seeing, what I can do. And one thing I wanted to touch on too, is you mentioned, one of the landowners that you knew had pulled $90,000 to take care of, remind me of the plant species.
Privet hedge.
Privet heads. Yeah. Which I don't see in the Northwest. I don't know what they are. But when somebody does that, any invasive species takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money to deal with. And so, when someone's looking at this, like, hey, I could make money on my land, it's like, you're probably not making all that much because of all the time, money, and effort that you're putting into the land, but you do get reimbursed for the effort. And then you come out with a more valuable piece of land. So the process that you go through when you sort of like sit down with these people and talk to these federal agencies that are there to help out landowners, what's that whole thing like?
Like I said earlier, most of them are very approachable. Not all of them know everything about all these programs because different regions may have more focus on forest lands and different regions may have more focus on farmland. So you've got to, kind of think about the region you're in, what may apply to your farm or your ranch, and go in and ask those questions. Like I said, I'm going to just go back to ag land. And I stopped by the Faraday, Louisiana USDA office 2 weeks ago. And I just popped in, no appointment. And I asked to speak to the WRE coordinator. And he came out and we talked for 45 minutes. I wasn't there to apply for anything, but he handed me, an inch thick stack of brochures and educational information. I told him what I did, and he's like, yeah, talk to landowners about this. Tell them to come see me. I'll be glad to educate them on anything, because he told me, he said, your tax dollars pay for us to be here and pay for these projects. And we need to utilize these programs, not just from a funding standpoint, because we have a budget, not from a penny pinching standpoint from the federal government either. Like, we got a budget, we got to use this money, but from a conservation standpoint, These people are passionate about land, water resources, wildlife. So they enjoy it. And as a landowner, if you can walk through your piece of land and say, what would I do? What would I like to do to this farm? It's kind of like walking through a house. What do I want to do to renovate my house? I want to put granite countertops. I want to change the bathtubs. Well, walk through your piece of property and say, wow, I wish I had a fire lane here. Or I wish, I don't know what kind of plants these are. Maybe somebody can come help me. I mean, the USDA, the NRCS will come do site visits and walk through your property with you.
Yeah.
So it's just getting in there, and it's just like anything else, especially in the land business. It's about developing relationships and fostering those relationships. And I think you don't want to go in there and every day and drink a cup of coffee with them, but if you go in there and it's productive time and they see that you're trying to do the right things on your farm and you're asking all the right questions, you're going to develop a relationship with them to where they're going to probably, hey, we got they might pick up the phone and call you. Hey, we got a new program. I think your farm may qualify. Why don't you come in and let's visit,
Yeah. And you bring up a really, really good point when you talk about that. You mentioned one, I realizing that somebody working in one of those offices was essentially marketing to you and giving you brochures and saying, hey, can you help me get the word out? But the other point is that those USDA offices that are in your area, it's not like you're knocking on the door of something to go in and kind of make a pitch, right? It's not like you're hoping that they're going to help you because they're a company that sometimes does that. And it's kind of a, sort of a contest thing, right? Like you've already paid for that service through taxes. It's a federal program. So,
right.
So you've already vested in it. They exist to help you, not to sort of like analyze what you're doing. So you're not going in to just hope and dream that they might talk to you about something. It's their job to talk to you about those things. Like they exist to help you with your land.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you can't go in to open the door of the USDA office thinking, "Oh, this is like a cold calling visit or a cold call pitch
That's
for me."
It's not.
It's not that. They say we're here. We work for you. It's just like being a land agent. When we have a listing, we work for that seller. Well, these USDA offices, they work for you. You've already paid their salary through tax money. One other thing I didn't mention before. The USDA offices are great, but look at your local extension offices. Like Mississippi State University has extension offices all over the state. And so, I mean, they're kind of like the USDA office on a state level. And gosh, they are so helpful. You can go in and they may have brochures on aging white-tailed deer, the right food plots to plant in certain areas of the state. What to do with chicken houses, what to do with cattle grounds. So they're free too. I mean, you just have to go up and talk to people. You can't be scared to go in and talk to these people because there's a tremendous, tremendous value and service that they give to the public.
Well, and there's, that's a really good point too, is you can learn a lot by reading it and going through and reviewing it. But when you're going through and you're researching, say, something to do to your land, it's easy to go and read, but then you're reliant on your ability to find the topic at hand, right? You're looking for a topic and you're hoping that you can stumble on it, and not so much stumble, maybe you know what you're looking for. But when you talk to somebody whose whole mission is to help you, they can kind of connect those dots. What you create for yourself is a faster process to learn, where they can go through and say, oh, well, you have this. Well, you should be looking up that, because if you didn't know what to look up as you go into research, you might not ever even find it. But if you have somebody that can connect the dots for you, and then if they have experience, a long amount of time invested in that kind of help, they can help you learn that much faster. You're accumulating years of knowledge just by talking to somebody and just working with them, as opposed to, sitting down and kind of digging through and trying to do it all on your own. Because I feel like a lot of landowners try to do it on their own. Like, well, I'm going to try out this plant, or I'm going to do this, when you could talk to somebody who's sort of educated on the topic or been doing this for a long time, and they can help you skip all those intermediary steps to get to where you want to get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I deal with a family of farmers in Louisiana, and I mean, really, they help me understand this because, I'll be out on the farm with them and they'll tell me, oh yeah, well, we're doing this tailwater recovery system. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And they're like, well, we've got an irrigated farm. We take all the runoff from the irrigation and recapture that in basically a large pond. And then we're able to take that water that we took out of the aquifer. Instead of taking more water out underground, we can take water back out of this tailwater system and pump it back. So, it's things like that when you think about, okay, well, it's almost like recycling. You're just taking something you've already reused and reusing it without depleting one of our natural resources. That helps, the aquifer from getting salty and or drying up. So, and the NRCS paid 75% of that project's cost. So,
and that's specific to tailwaters, right? Like water that comes out below a dam?
Well, no, water that they pumped it out of the ground to irrigate a farm. So they have wells, irrigation wells. They pump it out of the ground.
Oh, so this is aquifer water. Okay, so I was thinking. I'm sorry, it's my fly fishing background. I'm thinking tailwater. So this is water that's pumped out that you recapture and then hold so that you're not pulling more out of the aquifer.
Right, you're creating a reservoir, above ground. And then you can basically put a pump in that reservoir and pump it back out without taking more groundwater out.
Gotcha.
So you're reusing the water you already used to irrigate a farm. If people have any kind of questions or just want to look online before they go to the USDA office, the websites are very helpful. It's nrcs.usda.gov or fsa.usda.gov, and you can kind of get a handle on what to expect and what kind of programs are there before you go into the USDA office just by doing a little research online at first. Yeah, to at least prep you out a little bit to sort of know the questions to ask and know what you're looking for. It would be helpful. So check out those websites. So when you started out as a land agent here in 2012, it's my guess that you probably were not as aware of these programs. I mean, being around land, you could have been, but it's just my assumption that you probably slowly learned about these programs to where you could introduce them to people that you work with or just educate landowners that you talk to. What was it like when you started sort of like just learning all this stuff in the first place? Yeah, like you said, when I first started in the land business in 2012, I was fairly green other than just, hey, I like to hunt ducks and I like to hunt deer. So there's a lot more to selling land than that, though. I'd say it's probably 7 years ago, I started learning more about the CSP programs and knew a little bit about WRP, now WRE, and CRP before. But I'd say within the last 3 years, kind of been more involved in telling landowners about the opportunities with the USDA. It goes back to being what we call a land expert. You should continue to talk to landowners even after you sell a piece of property to them. And if you can help them and help guide them to the right resources, you continue to foster that relationship. And not only do you educate them, but you can get educated too, because they may call you, hey, Jack, thanks for, send me to the NRCS office. I'm about to start this project. Do you want to come out and see how it's coming along? So you go back out and revisit their farm and spend time with them. And they kind of tell you about the process. It's not just going in there and saying, hey, I want to do this. I mean, it's an application process, and then they rank them. So you may go in there and nothing may happen this year. So you got to be persistent and go back in, continue to talk to the USDA personnel and continue to apply, because just because it didn't rank high this year doesn't mean it may not rank high next application period. Right. So the process, you know.
And you bring up a good point about your role in sort of the whole land process is I feel like, you know, we all work in real estate, right? I mean, it's land, it's acquisition of land to build on, or land to farm, or land to ranch, or land to hunt. And working with real estate, you can get lumped in with sort of that the mindset of, this person is here to help me make a transaction, which fundamentally that is what it is, right? Like, land agents are there to help people sell and buy land. But when you're working as a land agent, it's a little more in depth, right? Like, you are essentially a consultant. You're there to assist someone in the process, but also in identifying new uses for land, or best uses for that land, or you know, optimizing even where, you know, maybe they're doing something that might not be the best use of that land, and you're sort of there to help guide the process, or you're there to help provide them an avenue of knowledge that they might not have had before, right? Like, so it's very intensive, the way that you guys work with land.
Well, I mean, you said a key word there, a consultant, and then we kind of hit on that at first, talking about ALC, accredited land consultant. So that's what RLI wants you to become. I think it's more than just selling land. It's being an expert to where you can, you know, help landowners through the whole process. And like you said, what is going to increase the value of my property the most? What's its highest and best use? You know, continuing to just have those conversations with landowners is part of being an ALC. It's not just a one and done. Hey, I sold you a piece of land. See you later. Thank you for the business. You know? Right.
And that's a really important differentiator, right? So where it's you're not just somebody that someone's going to work with. I mean, they can, right? They could call you up and they can buy a piece of land, or they can sell a piece of land, and they can close out the books and, you know, say goodbye. But they're also, by working with you, there's an opportunity there to have somebody to consult with, to talk to where, you know, your entire position revolves around networking around other professionals. You mentioned at the beginning, not being, you know, forestry hasn't been something that you've dove into throughout your career. So, you know the foresters to talk to, right? You can help them set up the right person for a prescribed burn. You've got resources there to where, like, you're kind of your human Rolodex, right? Where they can call you and, like, hey, I need some help with this. Do you know somebody? And you're there to consult kind of throughout the existence of their land, and them, you know, maintaining it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that's one thing National Land's building on with our PSP program. I was excited to see that rolling out this morning. You know, some new agent in our area may not have the relationships, but they can go to the PSP program and maybe find a surveyor or find a forestry consultant. You know, find environmental company to do a phase 1 or phase 2 on there. Find someone who has, you know, bulldozers that can clear lanes and you know, help food plots. And so
that's a heck of a plug there. And you know what? I'm still caffeinating myself this morning, and I wasn't even thinking on that level. And thank you for helping me with my job, man. So yeah, we have the PSP program that you just mentioned, the Preferred Service Provider program, where you can basically go on the National Land website and you can find resources in your area that provide services. So everything from like you mentioned, you know, surveyors to you know, foresters to attorneys that help you with succession, right? Right. The one qualifier in there being that every single service provider that is in this program that we mentioned, one, they didn't pay to get there. What they did was they worked with one of our land agents and they provided good service. So it's a vetted program. It's not a pay to play. And we're just providing this service for people to find others that can help them with their land.
Right.
Which is I think kind of thing. Because normally normally what it is it's a program where you go and you talk to companies and, hey, if you kick me, you know, this much money, I'll give you some, you know, some presence on our website. And this isn't that. This is, you provided good service and I want to refer you to others. And it's that sort of referral service that is so valuable in certain areas, or every area really.
And I think that also, increases the level of trust, knowing that, John Doe surveyor over here didn't pay us $250 to be on our our PSP network. It's a guy that I had a relationship with that did a good job before. And I asked him, hey, thank you, for doing such a great job. Do you mind being on our PSP program? Sure. That's it. There's no money. All it was, hey, thanks for doing a good job. I'd like to help grow your business and grow together.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that landowners can take advantage of on our website. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Like I said, I wasn't even thinking on that level. I want to give credit where it's due, and you highlighted that right out of the gate. So that's awesome.
No problem. Well, I mean, I think this whole concept of this podcast episode it's not about necessarily just one person. It takes a lot of people. It takes these PSP providers. It takes the NRCS and the USDA. It takes experts in land. It takes a good marketing team. And that's the approach you have to look at it, I think, is the team approach, because when you can rely on other people, I think the end result and coordinate things with other people, not just rely on them, because, you don't want to be that kid that has a project in science class and doesn't do his part and everybody else does all the work. Right? So you want to coordinate and facilitate all this stuff to get a good end result and everybody walk away happy. But it takes more than one person to do that.
Right. So Jack, I got you butted in here for like 45 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know that you have people that you were serving in your area today. So got almost a decade, you're right at a decade, aren't you?
Yep.
In the land industry. How does somebody get a hold of you, and what's your general area of work? Where do you're licensed in darn near every state in your area. So how does somebody reach you, and what are the things that you specialize in?
So the easiest way to reach me is on my cell phone, 601-395-7966, or you can call our Mississippi office at 601-878-2484. My email is jgabriel@nationalland.com. That's how you can reach me. What I love to do, I love hunting, I love fishing, and I really like dealing with row crop land and implementing some of these programs we talked about, like WRE, because when you like to duck hunt and farmers and they have some land that they don't like to use because it stays wet, you talk about putting it in WRE, you might have just picked up a new duck hunt spot. That's
a terrific turn of land use as far as making it usable, and because if it stays wet, it can damage the plants that you're trying to grow anyways. So you might as well make use of it some other way.
Right.
Well, excellent. Well, hey Jack, I appreciate your time. It's great talking to you, and it's always just fantastic to learn something new and to see the vast knowledge that you land agents carry. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
This concludes episode number 20 of the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing government programs designed to help you with land improvement with Jack Gabriel out of Jackson, Mississippi. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com. Quick reminder, please like, review, and share our show. Our show doesn't get found if people don't talk about it and hit that like button. So, if you found this show valuable, others will too. Make sure to share it. As we get reviews, we'll share them on the podcast. Now, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.